Mountains were never supposed to hold buildings like these. No roads, no cranes, no easy way up, and no easy way down. And yet, scattered across the highest, coldest, most punishing terrain on Earth, someone built anyway. Some of these places took centuries to finish. Some still cannot be explained by the people who study them for a living. 13 of them, all real, all standing, right now, exactly where logic says nothing should be. Number 13. Dogon Cliff Dwellings, Mali. In the 11th century, a people known as the Telam carved dwellings and burial caves directly into the Bandiagara Escarpment, a sandstone cliff rising nearly 500 meters above the plain below. The caves sit far up the rock face, high enough that the Dogon people, who arrived centuries later and found the dwellings already there, could not work out how anyone had reached them. Their explanation was simple. The Telam could fly. Modern archaeologists do not believe in flight. They believe in ropes, in vines, in a wetter climate that once supported vegetation, long since gone. But belief is not evidence, and evidence of the method has never surfaced. No tool marks that settle the question. No rope fragments preserved in the dry rock. Just caves, packed with the bones of the dead, positioned exactly where a fall would kill you, and a rescue would be impossible. Whoever the Telam were, they solved a vertical problem with means that have not survived to tell their own story. And that absence is where the next mystery begins. Because if isolation was the goal at Bandiagara, one civilization on the far side of the world took that same instinct and built something even less accessible. Number 12. Kuilap, Peru. At 3,000 meters in the Amazonas region of northern Peru, cloud forest swallows a fortress most people have never heard of. Kuilap. Built by the Chachapoya, a people the Spanish called warriors of the clouds, over centuries stretching from roughly the 6th to the 16th. The walls run 20 meters high. Inside them, some 450 circular stone structures, packed into a complex larger than Machu Picchu and roughly 700 years older. It stayed unknown to the outside world until 1843, when a local judge stumbled onto it during a routine tour of his district. A complex this size, hidden in plain sight for the better part of 1,000 years. Inside the walls sits something the Chachapoya left with no label, a structure called the Tintero, an inverted cone, roughly 5 meters across, cut 5.5 meters down into the main platform's floor. Ritual site, astronomical instrument, storage vessel, every explanation on offer, and not one of them confirmed. There is a second puzzle here, and it cuts against the first. The 3 entrances through the main wall narrow so sharply that only one person can pass at a time. A choke point built for defense against exactly the kind of assault this location makes almost impossible to mount. 20-meter walls in a cloud forest nobody could easily reach. Why build for a siege that geography had already ruled out? Half a world away, in Laos, a different kind of mountain devotion answered a very different question. Number 11. Wat Phou, Laos. Phou Khao rises above the Mekong in southern Laos, its summit shaped like a natural lingam, a form the Khmer associated directly with the god Shiva. Construction at Wat Phou stretched from at least the 5th century through the 12th, under a succession of Khmer rulers, predating the temples of Angkor by several centuries. The complex climbs the mountain itself. Causeways, staircases, a sequence of gates lifting the visitor higher with every step. The architecture designed so the ascent is the ritual, not a means to reach one. Nearby stands Phou Asa, a scattering of stone pillars, whose original purpose has never been settled, and a rock carving locals call the crocodile, its meaning still disputed. What the site does not answer is the obvious question of labor. Sandstone quarried on the mountain's own slopes, cut and hauled up gradients steep enough to challenge a modern hiker, assembled into a temple complex that took centuries and multiple kings to complete. No single architect is named in any surviving record, just the mountain and the temple that grew up its side, one reign at a time. Height in the Khmer world meant proximity to the divine. In the Caucasus, height meant something else entirely, and the structures built there raise a question nobody has definitively answered. Number 10. Svaneti Towers, Georgia. Roughly 3,500 stone towers rise from the villages of Upper Svaneti, tapering as they climb 3 to 5 stories, most built between the 9th and 12th centuries during Georgia's Golden Age. Here is the part historians cannot agree on. The obvious explanation is defense against invaders, and the towers do look built for exactly that. Entrances set high above ground, upper floors with slits for dropping projectiles on anyone below. But the Mongols never reached Svaneti. Many towers went up during a period of regional peace and prosperity, not war. So what were they actually defending against? One theory points inward rather than outward. Blood feuds, passed down through Svan families for generations, where an insult could be avenged by killing a male relative of the offender. On this reading, the towers were not walls against a foreign army. They were fortified houses against the family next door, which raises a colder question than the one most visitors arrive expecting. What does it mean that a community built 1,000 strongholds, not to keep out an empire, but to survive itself? Roughly 200 of these towers still stand in the single village of Chajashi. People still live in some of them. 1,000 years of quiet argument, built in stone, and nobody has closed the case. Fortresses built for internal fear are one kind of mystery. A church built downward, with no walls added at all, is another. Number 9. Lalibela, Ethiopia. At 2,500 meters in the Ethiopian highlands, King Gebre Meskel Lalibela ordered 11 churches carved from solid basalt in the 12th and 13th centuries. Not built, carved. Workers dug a trench around the outline of each future church, isolating a single massive block of stone, then hollowed it from the inside out, top to bottom, until windows, doors, columns, and vaulted ceilings emerged from what had been solid rock. The most striking of the 11, Bet Georgis, descends 12 meters below ground level and is cut entirely from one monolith. Local tradition claims the work took 24 years. Modern architects call that timeline close to impossible, even with steel tools and modern machinery. There is a second gap in the record that nobody has closed. The volume of rock removed to create these churches is enormous, and no corresponding spoil heap has ever been found nearby. The stone simply is not there. Legend fills the hole the way legend always does. Angels working through the night while the human craftsman slept. One Cambridge archaeologist has offered a more grounded theory. Parts of the complex may predate Lalibela by 5 centuries, built as secular structures during the earlier Aksumite era, with Lalibela completing and consecrating what was already there. It is a plausible answer. It is not a proven one. The churches remain active today. Daily services, centuries of worship, inside buildings. Nobody can fully explain how a medieval kingdom finished on schedule. So that is 5, and there is a pattern worth pausing on before we continue. Every one of these sites was built by people working against the mountain rather than with it, hauling stone up or carving stone away, using tools that should not have made the job possible on paper. What comes next pushes that same problem somewhere stranger still. Not just difficult terrain, but terrain that swallows sound itself. Number 8. Chavín de Huántar, Peru. High in the Peruvian Andes, the temple complex of Chavín de Huántar hides something most visitors walk directly over without noticing. Beneath the main platform runs a network of underground stone galleries, narrow, dark, and laced with ventilation shafts. Researchers studying the site have found that the passages carry sound in ways that feel deliberately engineered. Certain shafts amplify specific tones. Water moving through stone channels produces a roar that could plausibly have been mistaken by anyone standing in the dark for the voice of something not human. Ritual manipulation, deliberate deception controlled by priests who understood acoustics without a word for the concept, or genuine spiritual architecture built to bring visitors physically closer to a presence the builders believed was real. Every explanation depends on how much intention you are willing to assign to people 2,500 years dead. What is not in dispute is the effect. A visitor descending into those galleries loses the sun, loses open air, and finds themselves inside a machine built specifically to unsettle. Whether that unsettling was theater or genuine communication with the divine is a question the stone itself will not answer. Not every mountain builder hid their work underground, though. Some carved it directly into daylight, on a cliff face visible from miles away. Number 7. Petra, Jordan. The Nabateans carved an entire city into the sandstone cliffs of southern Jordan, choosing a location that made no obvious commercial sense on a map, and every kind of sense in practice. Petra sat at the intersection of incense routes running between Arabia, Egypt, and the Syro-Phoenician coast. Difficult to reach was, for the Nabateans, the entire point. A capital wedged into a narrow canyon, accessible mainly through the Sake, a winding gorge barely wide enough for a caravan, is a capital that is nearly impossible to besiege and easy to defend, with a fraction of the manpower a flat city would require. The facades themselves, most famously Al-Khazne, were carved directly downward into living rock, meaning any mistake near the top could not be corrected without abandoning the entire block and starting again elsewhere. There was no scaffolding to adjust and no second draft. The builders committed to a design before they knew exactly what the stone beneath it would reveal. For centuries after the Nabatean kingdom fell, Petra survived largely because of that same defensibility, tucked out of easy reach until Western explorers rediscovered it in the 19th century. A city hidden by the very geography that first made it worth building. Not every impossible structure was built for trade or defense. Some were built purely to reach a cave. Number 6. Paro Taktsang, Bhutan. A monastery clings to a vertical granite cliff face in Bhutan's Paro Valley, roughly 900 meters above the valley floor, with parts of the structure cantilevered directly over the drop. Local tradition holds that Guru Rinpoche flew to the site on the back of a tigress in the 8th century, meditated in the cave beneath what is now the monastery, and sanctified the cliff itself. The formal complex was not built until 1692, constructed entirely by hand. Every beam and stone carried up a narrow trail on human backs, since no wheeled transport could reach the site, and none still can. The genuine engineering mystery is not the legend, it is the execution. Builders integrated the monastery directly into the rock, walls merging into cliff face, floors following the natural slope of ledges, timber cut from nearby forest, and hauled up a route with no room for error and no way to bring up anything too heavy to carry. In 1998, fire destroyed much of the interior. No road existed to bring help. No engine could reach the flames. Reconstruction took the better part of a decade, everything again carried up by hand, because 3 centuries after the first monks built there was still no other way in. Height, for the builders of Taktsang, was not an obstacle to be solved around. It was the entire reason the site was chosen. And in China, one temple went further still, hanging its full weight not on the ground at all, but on the mountain's own rock. Number 5. Hanging Temple, Xuankongsi, China. On a cliff above Shanxi province, a temple has hung roughly 75 meters over the valley floor since the Northern Wei dynasty, sometime around 491 AD. From below, the structure appears to rest on slender wooden pillars. It does not. Engineers studying the site found the real support system hidden inside the mountain itself. 27 horizontal beams, chiseled into hourglass-shaped holes deep in the rock and wedged tight, functioning less like posts and more like giant levers, anchored into stone. The visible pillars beneath the temple carry almost none of the actual load. They exist mainly to keep visitors from looking down and losing their nerve. For over 1,500 years, that hidden mechanism has held. Through earthquakes, through storms funneled straight through the gorge below, through a millennium and a half of exactly the kind of stress that should have brought the whole structure down. The site holds a second peculiarity that has nothing to do with engineering. Inside its halls, statues of Buddha, Laozi, and Confucius sit side by side, the only known temple in China built to honor all 3 traditions at once, under a single roof, wedged into a single cliff. Nobody alive fully agrees on who first solved the physics of anchoring a temple's full weight into raw stone using nothing but wood and geometry. The mountain has simply kept the answer to itself for 15 centuries. Some builders looked for stone that would hold. Others hauled the stone from somewhere the mountain never offered it in the first place. Number 4. Pumapunku, Bolivia. Near Lake Titicaca, above 4,000 meters, the air alone makes physical labor twice as demanding as it would be at sea level. Above the tree line, no wood exists locally for rollers or scaffolding. And yet the builders of Pumapunku, part of the Tiwanaku civilization that preceded the Inca, moved blocks of red sandstone and andesite, weighing up to 130 tons, quarried from sites as far as 90 kilometers away. The surfaces are cut flat enough that modern engineers applying laser levels have called the tolerances effectively zero. Some blocks carry drilled holes, spaced with a regularity that is difficult to replicate by hand, even today. Certain stones show grooves cut in a dovetail pattern, apparently designed to hold molten metal clamps poured on site. Chemical analysis of surviving metal residue found traces of nickel, an element not native to the region. Where that metal originated remains an open question. By the time the Inca arrived in the 15th century, Pumapunku was already in ruins, its builders unknown even to the empire that inherited it. The Inca folded it into their own mythology instead, naming it the place where the god Viracocha created the first people, because a working explanation was easier to reach than a factual one. Not far away, in the city the Inca themselves eventually built above Cusco, a different kind of precision waited on the hillside. Number 3. Sacsayhuamán, Peru. Above the city of Cusco, at 3,700 meters, 3 tiers of zigzagging stone walls stretch 400 meters along the slope, some blocks weighing between 100 and 200 tons. No mortar holds any of it together. The joints between stones are cut so tightly that a sheet of paper will not pass between them, and every block is a unique, irregular shape, fitted like a fragment of a 3-dimensional puzzle rather than a uniform brick. That irregularity is not decorative. It is why the walls have survived earthquakes that leveled the Spanish colonial buildings built beside them. The individual stones shift slightly against each other and settle back into place, absorbing the shock a rigid wall could not. When Spanish chroniclers first saw the site in the 1530s, the official account described it as requiring the help of spirits. Others called the builders giants. The Spaniards then dismantled roughly 80% of the original complex to build a cathedral and colonial houses in Cusco below, using stones the Inca had spent a generation quarrying and fitting by hand. Beneath the walls, tunnels called chincanas run into the hillside. One remains open to visitors. The larger has been sealed for safety, and local tradition holds that it was once connected underground to the Coricancha Temple, 2 kilometers away in the city center. With the entrance walled shut, nobody has confirmed how far it actually goes. Sacsayhuamán survived because its builders solved a problem modern engineers still study directly. But not every mountain builder was hiding from an enemy. Some were building for the gods themselves and wanted the whole valley to see it. Number 2. Mount Nemrut, Turkey. At over 2,100 meters, the highest peak in the eastern Taurus Range holds a summit sanctuary built by a king who wanted to sit permanently among the gods. In 62 BC, Antiochus I of Commagene, ruler of a small kingdom wedged between the Roman and Parthian empires, ordered an artificial mound piled onto the mountaintop, roughly 50 meters high and nearly 150 meters across, built from crushed rock hauled up by hand. Flanking it, colossal seated statues of Zeus, Apollo, Hercules, a local fertility goddess, and Antiochus himself, carved at matching scale, the king placing himself as an equal among deities, rather than a supplicant beneath them. Earthquakes and centuries of weather have since toppled every head from its body. The heads now sit on the ground, staring out at the same horizon their bodies once faced above them, an image that has become the site's defining photograph. The larger mystery lies beneath the mound itself. Antiochus's tomb is almost certainly buried inside it, and despite repeated investigations since the site's rediscovery in 1881, nobody has located the burial chamber. Some archaeologists believe the loose, crushed rock was piled deliberately to make the excavation collapse in on itself, a tomb designed to defend itself by refusing to hold its own shape. 2,000 years on, the king who built a mountain to guarantee his immortality has succeeded, at minimum, in keeping his own grave a secret. One mountain sanctuary hid its builder's remains. Another mountain city hid an entire civilization's most famous unanswered question. Number 1. Machu Picchu, Peru. At 2,430 meters, wedged between 2 peaks in the Peruvian Andes, sits the site most people picture first when they hear the words, Lost City. And after more than a century of study, its full purpose is still argued over. Royal estate for the Inca Emperor, Pachacuti, ceremonial center aligned with the mountains around it, astronomical observatory, a retreat built specifically because its location made it nearly invisible from the valley floor below, hidden by its own geography from the Spanish forces that eventually destroyed so much of the empire around it. Every one of these theories has serious scholarship behind it. None of them has closed the question entirely. What is certain is the construction itself. Granite blocks cut and fitted with enough precision to shrug off the earthquakes that regularly strike the region. Agricultural terraces engineered with drainage systems, still functioning half a millennium later, and a site plan that required moving people, material, and labor to one of the most remote locations the empire controlled, for a purpose its own builders never wrote down. Machu Picchu remained unknown to the outside world until the early 20th century, protected the entire time by the same isolation that made building it there so difficult in the first place. The mountain kept the city's purpose exactly as well as it kept the city itself. 13 structures. 13 sets of builders who looked at terrain that should have made construction impossible and built anyway. The tools were rarely the mystery. The stone was rarely the mystery. What stays unresolved across every one of these sites is the same question asked in a different language each time. Why go to the mountain at all when the valley was right there, waiting, and so much easier to build on?